Hi, my name is Amber and this is my December TBR. My system for choosing what I'm going to be reading is that I set 10 of my own books that I want to read and 3 library books. But it's just a goal and I'm not going to force myself to rush through these books just to finish them. But it's just something to reach for. I'm going to start with my library books. I do not have them with me at the moment because they are still in transit. The first book is Austenland by Shannon Hayes. I'm not exactly sure what this one is about. I read the synopsis like years ago, and I've had it on my to eventually read list or to get list for several years. It's the first book in a series. Definitely looking forward to it. If it has to do with Austen, I'm definitely, as I said, looking forward to seeing what this is all about. Then I am going to be borrowing Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, a memoir. And Elizabeth Gilbert, tells how she left America. She made the difficult choice to leave all the things that Americans feel is success, having a good marriage, having a great career, having a stable financial life. And she travels other countries for a year. She sets her a year limit to going to different countries and exploring and finding herself through that. Super excited to actually read the book because I watched the film first without realizing that it was a book. So now I'm going to read it. I've heard mixed things about this, but because I did enjoy the film, even though I kind of felt it was predictable, I still want to read the book because I enjoyed it. The last library book that I'll be borrowing is The Last Letter from Your Lover by Jojo Moyes. More than 40 years after a car accident causes Jennifer Sterling to lose her memory on the exact day that she was going to leave her husband for her lover, a journalist named Ellie becomes obsessed by this story and tries to seek the truth to revitalize her career. Sounds very intriguing, very mysterious, and I'm excited to see what this story has to give and where it's going to take me. I've been wanting to read a Jojo Moyes book for a while. I heard a review on this through YouTube, and I believe it was very positive, so I've been wanting to read it ever since. It's been a couple of years, and now I'm finally going to get my chance. The first one is City of Women by David R. Gilham. If you watched my wrap-up, you know I mentioned this, and I am already halfway through this. I started this in November, and as I said, halfway through. I'm enjoying it thoroughly, and hopefully I'll be finished in maybe 2 to 3 days. The next book that I'm going to be trying to read is Cold Mountain by Charles Frazee. This is about a Confederate soldier and his wife. The soldier was wounded and he is trying to make his way back home, but he has to deal with a very hard journey back. All the while through, his wife is trying to keep their property and to survive through this very cold and dreary life that she was left behind in. I watched the film first without realizing that it was an adaptation from this book, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the original story, and really I am hoping that the film did not destroy this book, that it did a really good adaptation from it. It would be very disappointing to me if I realized that the film didn't do a good job with the book, And I am one of those people who believes in reading the book first, so it's always a little bit hard when I realize that I watched the film first. For me, it's just one of the things. And yeah, definitely looking forward to this. Common Sense, Rights of Man, and Other Essential Writings of Thomas Paine. I've been very interested in Thomas Paine ever since I read a fictional telling of the Revolutionary War in the perspective of George Washington and Thomas Paine. and I've been wanting to read his works, things that he wrote to kind of motivate the soldiers. It was very interesting to hear how much these works possibly had an effect on these soldiers. So I've always just wanted to read it straight through and just to kind of delve into these works, because that's a very important part of our history. We always celebrate July 4th, our independence, and this was a vital part in that revolution. The Color Purple by Alice Walker. This is about two sisters. One is a child wife and the other becomes separated with her and eventually becomes a missionary in Africa. And it's just kind of their journey back to each other. I watched the film first. Another shocker when I realized that this was a book. And I was like, oh my gosh. So when I was able to buy it, I caught it up. Just haven't gotten the chance to actually read it. Then I'm going to be reading Dune by Frank Herbert. This was the first book in the Dune series. I'm not exactly sure what the series is always called. This is sci-fi, and I'm not even going to try to explain what it is about. I saw this while browsing in a used bookstore, and I've been wanting to get into more sci-fi stuff, so I picked it up. And I'm kind of confused because I saw a book, and it said that it was Dune, but it was twice the size of this, so I'm very confused and a little nervous that I'm reading only half of Dune, the first book. Very confused by that. So I'm really hoping that I am not wrong about this being the full first book, because that would be very disappointing. But either way, I'm looking forward to getting into another sci-fi book. Dark Sky by Carla Neggers. I believe that this is a thriller or mystery, one of those, or a combination. But this is about a deputy U.S. Marshal named Juliet Longstreet, who has been threatened by one of the people she has put into prison and who has just been released. She decides to go after him, but she has to contend with Ethan Berger, who is a special forces officer who's also on the guy's trail, and so he kind of keeps bumping into her life, all the while dealing with his own grief after the death of his wife. Sounds very interesting. I'm really hoping that this is not a disappointment to me, because as I mentioned in my wrap-up, I've been having a really hard time with mysteries. Just East of Eden by John Steinbeck. As I mentioned in my book haul, I read the book The Pearl and really enjoyed it, so I'm really hoping that I'll be able to enjoy this. Sounds very interesting, and I'm intrigued at how he's going to handle those two stories into a more modern story. Emery's Gift by W. Bruce Cameron. This is about a boy who is grieving for his mother who's just died, and the father and him kind of are distant from each other, and one day he's in the woods behind their house, and a mountain lion comes after him, but surprise, surprise, a bear that's supposed to be extinct rescues him. Sounds very exciting, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading this. Fever 1793 by Laurie Halse Anderson. This is the author that wrote Speak, and as you may know, I really enjoyed that one. I thought it was amazingly well written and all that, and so I've been wanting to read another one of hers, and I finally am getting a chance to do so. This is about Maddie Cook in the year of 1793. She's a typical kid that doesn't like doing chores and has vague dreams, but then the fever hits the city, and her mother begs her, after catching the fever herself, to leave with her grandfather, but when they set out, she realizes that there is no place where the fever hasn't touched the city, and she has to find a way to survive. The last book that I'm going to be trying to get to this month is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, and it is a fantasy. I was introduced to fantasy through the Song of Ice and Fire series, and ever since I finished the latest book, I've been wanting to get into another fantasy. These books have been sitting on my shelf for quite some time, so I'm excited to get into it. There's a lot of people who was raving about this series last year, and ever since I've just been wanting to get my hands on them and read them, and now I'm getting my chance. Those are the books that I'm going to be trying to read this month. Tell me down below what you're planning to read. If you have done a TBR for this month yourself and you want me to check it out, just leave a link down below and I'll definitely go and watch it. Thank you so much for watching and keep warm.